And hello, everyone. Welcome to the 6 p.m. Eastern Time, which only matters to a select few of you out there. Parallel session here in the Lean Global Connection. Thrilled to be with you. So to kick things off, our next speakers come from an organization that has become widely recognized as an exemplar in lean healthcare. Please welcome Emily Swaney and Ali Culp from OhioHealth in Columbus, Ohio. Emily is the Senior Director of OhioHealth's Lean Promotion Office, where she leads the organization's continuous improvement efforts across a system of 35,000 caregivers, if you can imagine that. Ali is a Senior Advisor in the same Lean Promotion Office and brings a valuable frontline perspective to her work, or to their work, having previously served as a registered nurse. Together, Emily and Ali will share how OhioHealth is tackling a challenge that many mature lean organizations face. How do you keep the momentum going once you've established fundamental practices? Their presentation, Momentum Matters, Advancing Lean Beyond the Basics, will challenge us to think differently about who really drives the lean journey, and they'll share practical strategies for advancing a mature continuous improvement environment. I'm looking forward to hearing about their lean management system assessment, perhaps how it was developed and what they learned in the process. But before they begin, please remember to submit your questions using the Q&A function in Zoom throughout their presentation. I'll rejoin them in a few minutes, or towards the end, I guess, to ask those questions. Emily and Ali, over to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Josh. Well, we're super excited to be here with you all today. Our plan is really to walk you through OhioHealth's approach and how we transitioned from having a management system where we were truly just checking the boxes to having a truly effective management system that has allowed us to drive toward organizational excellence and one that can continue to improve year over year. So just to start with a little bit of information about OhioHealth, we are a not-for-profit healthcare system based out of Columbus, Ohio. We have a total of 16 hospitals within our system, our largest hospital having over 1,000 beds. And then we also have a handful of critical access hospitals, which have an average daily census of less than 10. And then in addition to our hospitals, we also have over 200 ambulatory sites, which includes freestanding emergency departments, urgent cares, primary care practices, et cetera. And then in terms of volume, you can see some of our key stats that are off to the right here. But really throughout this presentation, you're likely going to hear Ali and I continue to reference that our mission is really about that number on the left. So as Josh mentioned earlier, we have 35,000 members in the OhioHealth family. And it's really our goal that we can, at the end of the day, create a culture of 35,000 problem solvers. So today, while we are going to discuss a little bit about our lean journey through the years, we're really primarily going to focus in on sharing the strategy that we've used to continuously advance our lean culture year over year. And our hope throughout this presentation is really that we can provide you with actionable strategies for advancing toward this mature continuous improvement environment, and really challenging you and your organization to think differently about who it is that actually drives the lean journey within your organization. This is Dr. Steve Markovich. Steve is our CEO here at OhioHealth, and he's been a phenomenal partner to us through the years. And in Steve's words, at OhioHealth, our secret sauce is our culture, and our lean management system is an integral part of that culture. Lean is not just a thing we do, it's who we are, and it's embedded in our DNA. So today, we're excited to unpack how OhioHealth got to this point, and we thought it would be helpful to just start with a little bit about our lean journey. So we formed our continuous improvement team at the time called Process Excellence back in 2005. And at the time, our primary goal was really to be able to remove waste from the organization. And more specifically, I would say we were hyper-focused on removing financial waste from the organization. So with that, our team really became project managers for these large system-wide cost savings initiatives where we were really trying to help the organization be in a strong financial position. So then fast forward to 2016, at that time, we hired a new vice president into our organization, and he brought with him significant lean experience. And he also brought along with him the Shingo model. So as he introduced that Shingo model to our organization, there was a lot of excitement around really shifting the way in which we did continuous improvement, really starting to shed the connectivity to project management and specifically to finance, and instead putting people at the center of the model. And so as we shifted more toward aligning with Shingo at that time, we really started to focus on how can we create this culture where we have 35,000 problem solvers here at OhioHealth. So that then became our team's goal. We wanted to really be able to develop that culture of problem solvers. And we really wanted to, at that point going forward, put most of our effort into developing this comprehensive management system. And so that's where our team today spends a lot of our time. And so shortly after 2016, we began embedding lean tools into our system. And what we discovered was the organization and the leaders across the system actually did have quite a big appetite for the tools that we were introducing. And so year over year, since 2016, the adoption of these tools has really continued to grow. And then last year alone, our small lean team of just 10 individuals facilitated 56 Kaizen events. We have leaders across the system that complete about 100 A3s a year. We have over 750 active KPI boards or key performance indicator boards across the system, which for us is about 95% saturation within our clinical departments. And then across the system, we also support OhioHealth strategy execution through what we call goal deployment, also known as Hoshin-Conry, for 30 different functions of the business, really starting at that system level, but then supporting as the goals are cascading through 30 different areas. So all of that being said, we recognize that while these are great tools to have, these tools cannot be effective without leaders actually understanding how it is that they need to show up and support the work that's actually being done. So we placed a really heavy focus on laying some of that foundation through providing key education for our leaders on topics such as humble inquiry, A3, both in terms of the tool, as well as how we want them to be thinking in that A3 mindset, and then leader standard work. So with our leaders being trained in these key concepts and then actively using the tools that we had set in place, we did feel that at that point, we had a pretty strong foundation in place where we could continue to advance to the next level. So because we had the foundation of having tools in place and having taught key leader behaviors, we really then shifted toward developing our management system. And so this system really allowed us to focus on how can we take those tools and those behaviors and really create sustainable processes that can support those tools and behaviors that our leaders are now comfortable and familiar with. So in just a little bit, Allie's going to dive deeper into our management system, but just to highlight just a small handful of some of those key elements that we have in place today. We have 70 daily Gemba walks that are occurring where our leaders are present in every department, meeting frontline associates at the KPI board where problem solving is occurring. We launched system-wide tiered huddles where we have all of our safety concerns being escalated throughout the system by 12 p.m. We're supporting our hospitals and having an active and an intentional lead roadmap. And then we also launched a system-wide performance close process where we have all of our hospital executive teams gathering to review their monthly performance results. They share their countermeasures, and then they're also just have the chance to learn alongside one another. So even though we were a few years into using the tools and we felt pretty good about our management system, we found ourselves a bit stagnant. So we had different elements of the management system in place across our hospitals, but we found we were pretty inconsistent in both how they were actually being applied, as well as the quality of the tools and the process that was out there. So we recognize at this point, our hospitals are they're doing different elements of the management system. They maybe just weren't doing them all well. And so this became the real problem for us to solve as we move forward in our lean journey. So about 3 years ago, we began working on a model that allowed us to have a shared, clear vision of what ideal application looked like in both the tools as well as the behaviors across our organization. And I will say that this foundational step has actually allowed us to experience these continued enhancements in our management system throughout the years. So I'm going to hand it over to Allie. Allie is going to unpack the process we use to define ideal within our management system.
Great. Thanks, Emily. Um, we are going to talk through a little bit about our actual management system elements first, and then talk about the tool that Emily has described here. So ultimately, as she said, 3 years ago, we really needed to discover how can we help our teams understand what good looks like. And so part of that is it can't just rely on the lean experts, right, in the organization to push forward what this looks like. And so that is a lot of the ultimately the burning platform that we walked down 3 years ago. So high level, our management system, it is our way that we have our processes, tools, structure. How do we define our organizational success? How do we drive that progress and then sustain it as well? And so, as Emily mentioned, it really is our secret sauce here at Ohio Health. And part of that is due to our visibility in where we need to go, how we need to get there, and why. That's ultimately very, very important as well for our people to understand. So around 3 years ago, as Emily mentioned, we had a problem we wanted to solve. There was a general lack of visibility into what good looks like for our management system. So as I alluded to earlier, we knew what it looked like, but we were not really able to tap into all of our 35,000 folks where we could say, yes, they knew what good looks like. And as we've modeled here at Ohio Health, it is truly the ownership of our leaders and our associates for making that happen. And so it needed to shift out of our heads only and into helping our people understand what good looks like. And so some of that also, there were elements of our management system that were, because they weren't super clear, were backsliding or a little bit stagnant. That lack of visibility was impeding our progress as well. And then additionally, as I said earlier, we had to shift the mindset in our organization from the lean transformation and management system is the lean team's job, and it's all of our jobs as we move forward. And that's truly just the way that we work. So we developed a tool. We needed something palatable, easily digestible, something for our leaders to clearly understand how we articulate what good looks like for our management system. So we had three main objectives: to clearly define what that looks like, right? We believe that people want to do a good job. How are we helping them get there? How are we helping them see how they can? What is the insight into the current state of our management system? So do they think they've arrived, which is something that I think we found is they were like, yes, we are really good at lean daily management. And there were gaps in other areas of our management system. And so we needed to put that forward so they could truly self-identify where they were excelling and where they needed to lean in a little bit more. And this also helped us very clearly develop things that we needed to put on each individual business unit's lean roadmap, right? And so again, shifting that ownership out of us making that recommendation because we think it's what you guys should be doing, to our leaders taking ownership of what's next because now they know what good looks like. So let's chat a little bit about the tool. The tool lists 10 of our major current elements for Ohio Health's management system. You see those on the screen, ultimately defining for each of these tools or each of these major elements, where is each of our business units in their maturity and progression. So you can see on the left-hand side of the screen, anywhere from not present, this doesn't really exist in our area of business, all the way up to ideal, which is we are leading the pack in this particular area, and we are doing well. It's consistent, and we can teach others. And so there's this sliding scale that folks are able to really understand within each of these 10 elements where they sit. So how we use this tool, ultimately, we have introduced it to those business unit presidents. So in healthcare, that's often our hospital. So our hospital presidents, so on and so forth. The tool is used as a self-assessment. So we were very intentional around doing a self-assessment versus our team coming in and doing assessment. if you recall what I mentioned a few minutes ago, that part of this goal was to shift the ownership, right? We are a team of 11. We have 35,000 people we're hoping to tap into here. Truly, it needs to be owned by our leaders if we're going to change the way that we work. And so it's important for them to have a self-assessment with our team at the table so we can challenge, we can have that back and forth, that catchball conversation if we're not really seeing the evidence that they're talking about. But it's ultimately their decision on where they place themselves from that not present to ideal in a conversation with the experts that support them. And so we do lock in a current state at the beginning of every fiscal year. If this is where we feel like we are, and no shame in where we are, but it helps us figure out where we need to go, right? We need to get that first piece of the puzzle locked in. So with that, we then say, okay, well, we know where we are today. Where would we like to go? And we set goals at the beginning of the year as well. And so that gap between current state and future state is what lands on our lean roadmap. So it's very intentional, very easy to kind of flow through as well. And then ultimately we are reviewing that quarterly with each of those executive teams in order to engage how much progress are we making? What else do we need to do? What are the specific things that are still remaining for the fiscal year so we can move forward? This is a snapshot of our actual assessment tool. And so the intention here is not that you read the specifics, just get a high level overview of what it looks like. We wanted it to be simple. It's a rubric, it's in Excel. It is not overcomplicated. It is not scary for folks to use. But you can see our 10 elements across the top there, and then that progression scale on the left-hand side from not present to ideal. But there are very specific details in each of these areas that help our leaders self-identify where they might sit along the way. Here's an example, just because again, that was very small text, but if we flipped one of those examples on its side and turned it into actually a row, that's what you're seeing in front of you. So the tiered huddles is one element of our management system. And I won't read this to you, but you can see that it gets more and more detailed, more explicit, closer to ideal. And it is actually harder for folks, right, to flip from proficient to ideal than it is for them to flip from not present to present. And that is part of the conversation they have when they're looking at the work ahead of them for the upcoming fiscal year. The scoring. So we talked about this a little bit. Again, this is a self-assessment. I want to be very intentional that we are reiterating that. But we chose to avoid numerical scoring with our customers, right? We want this to be qualitative. We're not shooting for somebody to have an X% or an XYZ score. We want them to really understand, yes, this is present, this is proficient, this is ideal. And we do within our team have a master document. So we do have a line of sight into where everyone is sitting throughout the year, what their goals are, where they started, so on and so forth. But they don't see that. So they don't see their peers. This is again intentionally designed to be here's where we are. Here's this unbiased assessment of where we are and where we want to be, because this is what's right for our business unit as well. And so ultimately that again really leads to the development of their robust lean roadmaps that are very individualized to our care sites. So our folks are able to truly choose where they want to lean into in terms of maturing their management system. But they have the whole picture, right, of what good looks like, which is really, really helpful. Here's another example, again, not intended for you to read the specific documentation here, but this is what it looks like for each of our business units. So this is an example here, but our teams help our folks identify again, where are they at the start of the year with a yellow dot? That's what you're seeing here. Where are they, or where do they want to be by the end of the year? And then quarterly, as I mentioned earlier, we're going in and we're moving the green box. So we're moving the green box to see how far we have progressed. There's sometimes we regress. And that's a very frank conversation. Ideally, again, how do we coach our leaders to be able to self-identify that has happened? And it's a proud moment when we're able to make that happen, because I think that is so valuable in terms of ownership of how do we make sure these people know what good looks like and that they're really able to own their journey. And again, as I mentioned earlier, one of the good things about this is it truly allows each of our business units to customize what they want to focus on for the year in ways that can best serve them, which has really been valuable for our leaders across the organization. The other thing I wanted to mention is that we actually have direct accountability to progression in the management system. And so what you're seeing on the screen is actually a section of Emily's accountabilities as it relates to management system progression. In the purple box, you do see that there is a number there. So I know I referenced earlier we're qualitative for our care sites, but because our team does get a roll up, it is able to measure, or we are able to measure the effectiveness of our team, and we attribute numbers to each of the sections, but that's not something our care sites see. That's really for us and our responsibility for progressing the management system across the organization. The other really cool thing is that often our hospital presidents, and then they cascade their accountability as well to their leaders that report to them. It's truly actually on their accountability. So they need to progress in the management system. And it's a net progression. So again, if we regress in any particular element, that counts against the overall net progression. And so they are really owning their work, and it has driven a significant improvement in our management system along the way. And so part of our team's role in the organization, we work in an advisory capacity, and we work solely on a pull system. And so we know what good looks like. We have now articulated what good looks like, and now it's up to the organization to pull for our support in order to progress along the management system, which has been very valuable and has increased engagement significantly across the organization. We again have more robust roadmaps, lean roadmaps, in our business units that we've seen because of this work. We have given clarity to not only new leaders, but existing leaders who have been in the system for 20, 30 years on what good looks like for OhioHealth's management system. We, again, are seeing significant improvements, whether that's at that particular business unit or across our organization, and a lot of the things that we're focusing on. And ultimately, how are we empowering our leaders and our people to move forward, to truly own their business and make that progression. And this tool has been a small but mighty way in which we are able to do that. And so you can see a little snapshot down at the bottom for FY25, those results where we were able to progress from 1.55 all the way up to 2.818. That was again solely on a pull system from our leaders who were interested in leveraging our tools, our structure, our processes in order to improve the work they do every day. Emily, what would you add?
No, I think you covered it. I know we do have a couple of questions in here. If we feel like we're ready for some questions, Allie.
Yeah, let's do it.
Hi, I'm back.
Welcome back.
Thanks. Why don't you go ahead and stop sharing your screen so we can.
Perfect.
I think no reason for that. Great, thank you. So indeed, some questions have come in. Thank you to everybody who submitted questions so far. Keep them coming. So the first one that came in from Molly Williams was she heard you about there's no score, that we want qualitative measurement of the system, but that didn't stop her from her curiosity as to whether scoring is made visible to the C-suite.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll start, Allie, feel free to chime in. But this is something we were very intentional about. So we have a position in our organization called a market president. And so that is the leader of our hospital presidents. They're really the only ones who understand where all of the sites are in their journey and are constantly looking at that, and are maybe even trying to have those coaching conversations one-on-one with their direct reports. So they have probably the most access, but in terms of a quantitative number, no, not really. I would say, and we are very intentional in not providing that information to the C-suite. I would say as we developed the tool initially, that was just part of our standard that we set was we don't want anybody to focus on the scoring because that's a very quick way to make our sites disassociate with the tool, right? And make them feel uncomfortable with the tool. Allie, anything you would add there?
Yeah, I think we review it within our own team on a monthly basis as well. And if we notice any, again, backsliding, the conversation becomes, okay, where do we need to focus our efforts? So on and so forth. So yes, I think we are a very naturally high performing organization in terms of people want to do better than they did yesterday, which is amazing. But I think with that can come, right, some conversations where folks are focusing on a number versus focusing on the quality of something. So the intentionality that Emily mentioned was really purposeful.
Awesome. So a question from Benjamin Lupo, if I pronounced that correctly. Has the description of some states evolved as time has passed and through implementation, or were they the same, what good looks like from the beginning?
Such a good question, Allie. I'll let you answer that.
So absolutely, they have evolved. I think the conversation that we have too with our leaders is we are constantly reevaluating what does ideal look like, right? We're getting new information, we're getting more specific, we're learning alongside folks as well. And so just in the same way that healthcare standards and practices change on a routine basis to consistently push yourself and figure out what's next. It's the same way we've done that. So we have an intentional structure and process within our team to pull it out every year and look at it and say, how can we make this clearer? How can we make this better? What's the feedback we've gotten? What's the best practices that we could integrate into this tool? And so it has iterated since it's launched.
I might also add to that one too, Allie. Not only do we tweak the definitions of each of the different progression steps, but we also have actually added columns. And so as our management system has continued to grow and to really see a bit of enhancement year over year, we've added 2 additional columns since we initially launched the tool. So it gets tweaked, but also it grows as we continue to grow and advance in our lean journey.
Awesome. So I happen to know that Columbus, Ohio is a bit of a hotbed for lean activity, lean organizations, the state of Ohio generally. We could say there's a question here that sort of relates to that, because what I also happen to know is that OhioHealth, at least recently, has been hosting site visits from curious lean folks from around the world. So not only is there that local community, but there are people who even travel in from afar to check out what you guys are doing. And the question that came in is the great work that has happened at OhioHealth applicable to other businesses, or would you say it's specific to your unique organization?
Yeah, we shared it here because our hope is that it is applicable to all industries, anybody who's out there. But also, Allie, as she had our management system assessment tool pulled up, it was really small. And she mentioned, our objective here isn't that you read the detail. This tool cannot be copy and pasted. It just won't work for all organizations, right? And so conceptually, we do believe that this can provide a really firm foundation for your organization to have clarity and to be able to continue to drive progress. But I do think what lands on your assessment tool would look and feel different depending on where your organization is.
Great. So a couple more minutes, maybe one more question, perhaps two, but we'll see. So the question here is, what type of background, in addition to lean expertise, are required for leaders to coach on the management system? Are they trained as executive coaches on leadership? What other kind of preparation might folks need to get?
That's a great question. So we've really tried to not make our lean management system this other, right? And so it is truly the way that we work. And so all leaders have exposure to our management system in some capacity, depending upon where you are in the organization and what level of the organization you are in as well. Our team does primarily support leaders, executives, so on and so forth, where there is coaching. But it's all about how do we, we believe people are our best asset. So how are we tapping into people, and how are we helping our leaders tap into people as well? And so some of it is organic. Some of it is we have a very, very structured coaching process as it relates to our lean daily management and going to Gemba as well. That is focused on a first coach and a second coach, and truly just how do we get used to using the coaching pattern in everything that we do, and transition our leaders from leaders as directors and into leaders as coaches.
Fantastic. So we are going to ship on time here. It is 6:30 p.m. Eastern time, which again, doesn't matter to many people who might be joining us. But thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for sharing about the work that you've been doing and candidly answering the questions that came in. I appreciate your time. Thanks for your contribution.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye, everybody.